And thank you all so very much for joining us today. I know your lives are very busy and you're trying to get up and running and get your information out to your students. So I will go ahead and get started right into everything right away. Also, just for you to see what's happening, this is our training agenda. So we're basically going to go over the nuts and bolts, everything that you're going to need to use iClicker in your classes. I am also using a single screen. So there are many instructors out there that don't have 2 or 3 screens that you're used to. So I'll show you a little trick that I'm doing to go ahead and make this as easy as possible, showing lots of things, but just keeping one screen going at a time. Also, if you do join us, please feel free to, again, just sit back, relax, and drink a, hot beverage to keep you going, or a cool beverage if it's warm where you are. So the first thing I'd like to go over, again, are the names of the products. A lot of people are confused at times, especially with the different options that we have available. So again, today we will be going over the iClicker Cloud Instructor software, and your students will be using iClicker Reef. And this is the option where you can download the app right onto your smartphone. Your students can also use a tablet, or they can log in directly at our website using a web browser on a computer. Also, if any of your students say they don't have enough room to download another app onto their smartphone because they have music and pictures and videos and snaps and all that stuff, they can simply log in via a web browser on their smartphone as well, just like they would be looking up anything that you would find on your phone. You can just Google our website and they can log in that way. And some of you have already done that. So if you have downloaded the app, you would be able to join in our session today. And I'll also take you through those steps. So let's go right on into it. With iClicker, the really nice thing is you don't have to author any of your questions in our software. You can just continue to work with the tools that you are currently using. iClicker works with anything that you can show on a computer screen. So there's nothing that you can't go ahead and use as long as you're comfortable with it. And again, you can show it on the computer. All iClicker does is take a snapshot of your computer screen at the moment you say it's time to ask a question. So in this case, I'm using PowerPoint. So if I wanted to go ahead and put a question into my already existing presentation, I would simply add a slide wherever I wanted to, and then type my question directly on the slide. That's as simple as it is. So feel free to use PowerPoint if you're comfortable with that. Also, if you have any test banks and they come up in a PDF or a Word document, you can go right ahead and use those as well. So again, trying to keep everything as easy as possible and to make this simple for you. I also mentioned that I am using one screen, as I know lots of you are trying to get used to. So I do not have my PowerPoint in presentation mode. One of the things this allows is for me to have access to my toolbar. So I can go ahead and have a window open in a web browser to maybe the ebook that I wanted to talk about and kind of bring in and show to my students. So that's something that you can do by keeping it out of presentation mode. However, if you didn't know, there's this little trick that kind of makes everything full screen. So typically we're able to see the toolbar and all of the different commands and controls here. But in the top right-hand corner, we have this little arrow in a box. And that will help us to get rid of this whole ribbon display. So if you simply click on that, you can auto hide your ribbon. So those commands will go away, and therefore I have use of the majority of my screen. Now, of course, this will also take away any notes that you might have put in for talking points. So they might be helpful to have jotted down or print your notes out. Or if you have a tablet, you can open up your notes that way and read them from there, since you won't be having that availability on that single screen. Because remember, exactly what you're showing on your screen in this Zoom meeting or any kind of webinar, distance learning, remote learning environment will be exactly what your students see. Now, if you are just getting started, you'll need to create an account with iClicker. You'll also need to download the iClicker desktop software. And also, we do recommend making sure that your internet connection is stable. So if you have the ability to hardwire, that's great. I know every kind of internet company is being stretched to the max since we are all now going online for everything. But just make sure that you do have a decent internet connection or move as close to your router as possible. And again, the last thing you'll need to do is include those polling questions in your lecture slides. I'm also going to take you through the student side of things. And some of you may have created an account in iClicker Reef. And for those of you who have not, I can walk you through the steps, and I'll also show you the student experience. So these are some of the requirements for your students. They do need to create an iClicker Reef account. They can do this either at the iClicker.com website, or they can download the app in their smartphone or tablet. Also, let your students know that they can use any one of those 3 devices, basically anything that connects to the internet, to participate in these polls. A big thing to remember is that the students must enter the access code in a web browser, not in the iClicker Reef app. So as long as they just log into iClicker.com once, enter the access code in there, then they can resume using the app for any of the rest of the class or any of the rest of your sessions. But the access code only works if you enter it into a web browser. So that's something you may want to note when talking with your students, or if your students come back and say they have trouble with their access code and it's not being captured. Make sure that they enter it in that web browser, please. So let's go ahead and look at the Reef setup. So in this case, I am going to log in as a student right at our website. And again, I'm doing this all from one screen. So I simply open up a new web browser here. Go to iClicker.com. Your students can create an account simply by clicking on the Create Account option in the white banner at the top right of the screen. Select Student, and then they will go ahead and fill in the information and follow along in the prompts. If you want to join our polling session today, feel free to go right ahead and create an account here as a student. You'll also be able to use this student account for practicing. So this way you can run sessions as an instructor and then also answer those questions as the student. If your institution is not yet in our database, please enter Reef University, R-E-E-F, University. And what we will do is ask you to provide us with your school name so that we can get it into the database, and then you can change your school's institution name over to the correct school once we get that completed for you. So choose Reef University if necessary, or your school's name, and fill in this information. So this is all the information we require from your students: no birthdays, social security numbers, nothing like that. Once the students do have their account, they can simply log in instead. So I will sign in as a student, and I'm going to make this window a little smaller. And this will be a representative of our smartphones. So if we imagine this is a student's smartphone, this is going to be their dashboard where all of their courses live. They just need to add a course. So in this case, we simply click on the plus sign in the top right corner. Once we do that, we have a chance to confirm our institution name. So we'll click on that institution name, which will automatically populate since that's a required field when they create their account. And then the students just search for your course. They can either type in the course name or they can search by your name, and that will bring up all of the courses you teach. So in this case, I will type in my name, and I can see the different options available at my institution here. Now, for those of you who are going to be joining the session, we do ask that you actually put in Macmillan Learning if you wanted to participate today. So if you type in Macmillan Learning as your institution, just for this one course, click on that, and then type in either my name, Alana, A-L-A-N-A, you will find the course that you're looking for. So we'll simply tap or click on that. Your students will have a chance to confirm that this is the correct course, and they simply click or tap on the Add This Course button. And now that course will appear in their dashboard right here. Now, iClicker Reef is very powerful, so I'm going to jump into one of my courses that I have some data in already. The students are able to see their statistics for each individual course. So if you are awarding any points for correct responses, your students can come here and see how many points they've earned, how many possible points there were for the entire semester so far, and they may find a day where they didn't answer many questions correctly. So they know they need to go back to that day's session and review those questions. Also, if you're using iClicker to take attendance, your students can tap on their attendance tab, and this will show all of the days that they were in class, days that they were absent, and also if you allow excused absences, that would be something that would populate here as well for you. So the students have a chance to see that right at their fingertips. And the course history button, when you have actually completed a session, all of the questions will be saved in the student's account. So they can go back in and review those sessions from any time. I can come through, I can go back to that day that I didn't answer many questions correctly. I can see what I did from one day to the next, and I can simply click on any one of these sessions, and it will bring up those questions that were posed. Now, I can tap on this little thumbnail question. It will show me how I originally answered the question and what the correct response should be. And I can go through all of the questions that were posed in that specific session here. Additionally, students can simply tap or click right on the little bookmark or flag in the top right-hand corner of any question. When they do that, iClicker automatically turns those questions into study tools. So the students can use flashcards. Instead of writing out all of your questions on those wonderful, index cards and having them wrapped up with rubber bands and then finding the rubber band snaps and they go all over the place, now we have digital flashcards for the students. And they can go right ahead and flag any or every question that they wish. So this can be personalized for each individual student's needs. Additionally, those questions that are flagged will go into the practice test. And the practice test is going to pose these questions in the same manner in which they were asked during the live session. So this was asked as a multiple choice question. I would simply tap or click my response, and it tells me whether I'm correct or incorrect. Move on to another question. This one would be a short answer. So I would type in my response, and it lets me know again right away, correct or not. So this is the student experience in iClicker Reef and everything that they can do once class has ended. Of course, we want to see how it all works when class actually happens. So that's what we're going to cover next. The first thing you as the instructor need to do is download the iClicker Cloud Instructor software. And again, you can access this right at the iClicker website. In the white banner on the left-hand side, we see the Downloads button. If you click on that, it will be the first software option, iClicker Cloud. Move over to the Download Options button, and you'll see an option to download for Windows and Mac users. Now, for those of you who are Windows users, when you click on the download option, we do ask if you have administrative privileges on this computer. If you're using your own personal computer, you probably do, since it's your own. For those of you who may be using a computer that was provided by your school, you may not have the option to install software on that computer. Either one of these options will allow you to download iClicker Cloud and use the full version, everything that iClicker can do. This is just going to determine how the software is installed on your computer. So if you choose the No option, please note that this is simply a compressed file. So you'll need to unzip the folder or extract all of those files once you download it. And when you do click on either option, the page will change behind you to give you the instructions on how to install iClicker Cloud. Now, once you have that installed, then we just need to go ahead and create your account. Or if you have already created an account, you can simply use those credentials to log in. Also, a fun little tip, the email address and the password that you created to log in as a student can double as your credentials to log in as an instructor for iClicker Cloud. So you don't have to worry about trying to remember two separate email and passwords for both different programs. If you have yet to create an account, you can simply click on the Create Account option. Again, fill in the information that is listed here. The instructor remote ID, you will not need this, as this is only if you are using our handheld remotes, which would not be a possibility if you are working with distance learning at the moment. So once you've filled in this information, simply hit Create at the bottom right corner, and then you will be asked to sign in. So I'll just take a moment and sign into my account here. And this will bring me to my instructor dashboard. So all of my courses are now listed here. However, if this is the first time you've logged in, you will need to add a course, just like the students need to add your course. So let's create a course now by clicking on the Add New Course button. And the default here will be for you to use the option to run polls, quizzes, and attendance. So that will give you all of the features iClicker offers. Again, your institution name will automatically populate, as well as your discipline if you put that in as an instructor when creating that account. If you are using Reef University at the moment, again, once we get your institution into our database, please go ahead and make sure that you change this so your students can find your courses listed under their school. So basically, the only thing you need to do is name your course and also select the start and end date for this course. And once the course ends, it will automatically move into an archive folder for you. And this way, should you be using this in the future, you wouldn't accidentally click on a course that has already ended. If we scroll down a bit, there are some additional fields that you can fill in. These are optional, but they're super handy, especially if you're teaching 2 or more sections of the exact same course. So even selecting the days and start times for those courses would allow your students to find this class a little easier. Also, do please make sure that you create one iClicker Cloud course for each course or section you are teaching. There's no need to create a master course or copy anything, because pretty much what we're doing is just creating a shell. We're creating the name here. Because nothing is uploaded into the software, you'll simply use the same PowerPoint presentation or Word documents or anything that you use over and over for each class, just like normal. So we just need to name the courses here. Then click the Create button in the bottom right-hand corner, and your course will be added to your dashboard. One little tip that I always love to give is creating a test course or practice course or play course, whatever you would like to name it. But this way you can go through and do all of your practicing and trying it out without adding sessions to your real course. And then you would have to go back and delete them before running classes with your students. So feel free to create a test course or play course. And that way you can again practice as the instructor and student and answer your own questions. So let's go right ahead and start class. Here, you just hover over the course that you are going to be working with at the moment, and you'll see the Start Class button appear. Once you click on that, your students will automatically get a notification that class has begun. So I'll show you that in a moment, but let's review the toolbar here. Now this toolbar floats around your screen, and it will simply float above anything that you have showing on your screen. To move it, just click anywhere on this blue circle with the cloud and drag it. And then you can release it and it'll stay wherever you put it. You can choose to place it wherever you wish on the screen. And if you don't want this toolbar showing the entire class time, if you click right on this blue circle and release, it will minimize and collapse down that toolbar. So then you can kind of tuck it out of the way, have a nice clean screen while you're doing your presentation, and then when it comes time for a question, bring that cloud back out, tap on it again, and the toolbar will expand for you. One of the other features we have available are namings for each one of these little icons. So we have the names below if you simply hover right over them to help you get used to what these are and know what it will cover until, again, you get to know those icon images. So if we click on the attendees option, I can see how many participants I have, how many have joined my course but have not joined the session, and we can even go ahead and click on the roster, and that will open up and show each one of our students and the times that they checked into class. Now, to go ahead back to the main toolbar, simply click on the little back button between the cloud and the toolbar functionality. This takes you back again to that main toolbar here. And we're going to review polling first. So if I click on this polling toolbar, now I have access to choose the type of question that I'd like to ask in class. Multiple choice is the most popular, so that's always the default. But if you use the drop-down button, you can switch to a short answer question, a numeric response, or a target question. So for these questions, your students would have the option to answer or to enter 140 characters for the short answer question, basically the original tweet. The numeric response is going to bring up only the calculator keys on their smartphones, so they'd only have access to numbers and symbols. If the students are using a web browser, it will also show them what characters are allowed to be used in that specific response. If you're teaching something like algebra, where you have to have the student's response say y equals and then a number, you might be better off asking that question as a short answer question so that the students will have access to all characters, letters, numbers, and symbols. And the target question is probably my favorite. This, you can bring up an image, ask the students a question, and they'll simply use their finger to touch or their mouse to tap on that image and show you where the answer should be. So it's kind of like a heat map or a touch screen style question. So let's go ahead and join the session and run a few polling questions. So I'm going to bring up my student view here, and I will switch to my course, which is iClicker Cloud Training Webinar. And since I started class, you all may have noticed that we have this join option. And once you click the join button, that will actually check you into class right away. So it tells your students, hey, you've already checked in. No need to do anything, just hang tight until your instructor asks a question. So let's ask a multiple choice question. All right, so we just go to our slide. Once we have a question showing, that's when you interact with the iClicker toolbar. To ask a multiple choice question or any question, again, make sure the type is correct in the little window and click on the green Start or Play button. When you click on that, that's when we take the snapshot of your computer screen. Also, the Start button now turns into your Stop button. You'll also notice that the polling timer has started. This is defaulted to count up from 0, but you can also change it to count down, and your polls will automatically stop when time runs out. In this case, I prefer to have the timer count up. I find that students read at different paces. Some students may take a little longer to mull and think things over. However, we don't want these questions to go on forever. So if you notice that the responses are not coming in or reaching the number of students who are attending your course, you can always give them a little warning that, hey, 10 more seconds or 5 more seconds, so I'm going to close it up, get your answer in. For those of you who have not joined us in the actual class in iClicker Reef, this is what your students are going to experience. Again, this is truly just a snapshot of your computer screen. You can see my toolbar at the bottom, Zoom's little toolbar up at the top. So it's just a picture of your screen. And then your students will simply touch or tap on their answer. And they can change their minds as many times as they wish, as long as the timer is still ticking. But once you stop the clock or the time runs out, that will lock in their response. So now to show these results to your students, we simply click on the chart button, and this will open your results panel. In this case, you can enlarge it. If necessary, you can make it narrow, small, whatever you'd like to do. So this, again, is something that is adjustable for you. Now, in this specific question, there is no correct answer. So that is totally fine. We have a lot of instructors who just ask questions to get the opinions of their students, to spark discussion. I know it's very difficult for that at the moment. But if you do have a question where there is a right answer, all you need to do is simply click or tap right on the response that is correct. That answer will turn green. All incorrect responses turn red. If you chose the wrong response, just click on it again to clear it, and you can choose a different response instead. So that is multiple choice. Then to minimize the graph, we just click on that little chart button again, and that will take away that polling response window. And you can move on in your presentation to your next slide or whatever it is that you are working on. Now, in this case, this is a target question, and this is a great example of ways that you can format some of your questions should you wish. So to kind of give students a way of seeing each individual option that's listed here, I added these little boxes along the side. However, it is not required. So you can simply copy and paste an image from an ebook or a test bank and place it right on your screen, no formatting necessary. But I am asking the students to go ahead and select, which means you will tap or click in the box that corresponds with the patella. So I've changed my question type in the window, click on that green start button, the timer starts, and that question goes right out to the students. Now, the students technically can click anywhere they wish on the screen. So I can click here on the question itself. I can click on the image. I can, again, click right in any of these little boxes that you may have prepared for them. One of the things that you might want to consider is, again, if you don't see as many responses as you think you should, remind the students to click on the send button. So once they tap on their response, it will show that their answer is pending. However, it will not be recorded until they hit send. So usually 1 or 2 classes, if you remind them, hit send, they get the hang of it. So I'll click and send in my response. But the students, again, can change their mind, even though they may have sent a response, as long as that timer is still open. They just need to hit the send button again to have their newly placed response captured and recorded. And then again, we stop the clock. That locks in those responses. And we'll use that same chart graph button to open up the results panel here. And of course, I will enlarge this a bit. So to grade the target questions, simply take your mouse and hover anywhere over the image. And when you do that, you'll notice that the image turns gray. So if I click anywhere on that image, I now have made it so that I can edit this image. To go ahead and choose the correct responses, we'll click and drag and create a field around those responses that are correct. Those that are incorrect will be marked in red. If you're not happy with your window, your box, your square, your rectangle, in the top right-hand corner of this little response window, underneath of the Save button, there is a trash can. You can delete that, and you can go right ahead and restart your image and make that field. When you're happy, you can click on the Save button in the top right-hand corner of this window, and that will show you how many correct and incorrect responses. So in this case, I will just minimize this window and move on to our next question. So here we have a short answer question. I'll change this to short answer, start the clock, and ask you to enter 2 or 3 words that describe how you're feeling about moving your courses to an online environment. And again, the students will see that question and they can type in their response. maybe I'm nervous, kind of scared, that's fine too. Whatever you may be feeling. And again, the students, we ask them to click the send button. Again, they have 140 characters that they can use to submit their responses. So you can use this for fill in the blank questions, even a short definition if you wanted to. Because the great thing about iClicker is you don't necessarily have to grade your questions live. You can wait until after the class is over and do that at the iClicker website. If you have someone who does respond in the exact same way, we will bucket all of those responses together. So you may not see 50 individual responses here, but if you are asking a question like this, where it's just giving us a few words or an opinion, and we'd like to see how everybody feels, apprehensive and overwhelmed, oh, absolutely, then we can go ahead and leave this question ungraded if you want to. Or if you do want to award any kind of point, simply click on the menu button next to the question number, those 3 dots, and you can choose to mark all of those responses correct. So you don't have to go through and click on each individual response. One of the other really awesome things here, on the top right-hand corner, we have the option to turn these responses into a word cloud. So highlighted in blue is the bar graph that we're looking at. But if I click on the ABC button, this will now turn all of these answers into a word cloud for me. And if you would like to refresh the word cloud, in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a little circle. And if you click on that, it'll just refresh the images, change them up a little bit. So just turn around that word cloud a bit for you. And then we can go back to the bar graph by clicking right on the bar graph icon. The other thing about grading questions that are short answer as well as numeric questions, you can choose as many answers as you wish. So perhaps a student spelled something incorrectly. You can choose to award them points even though their answer may be misspelled, kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt. They're using their cell phone. And of course, cell phones have autocorrect, which can be helpful, but also can be a hindrance at times. And if you would like, you as the instructor can also enter your own response. So in this other section, I can enter a response here and say nervous, maybe reinforce whatever the correct answer would be, and then provide the why. So an explanation as to why that answer is correct. And anytime you choose more than one correct response, you'll see that we have stars appear at the end of those correct answers that you have chosen. And this allows you to go ahead and star the best correct response. And in this case, I want it to be mine. This way, I know that the students are going to see my answer in that wonderful study guide later on down the road. So I'll mark you all as correct and star my response. And then as the student, I have the opportunity, I can see, yes, my answer has been marked correct. But when I check the results, I see, yes, my answer is correct, and then the response from my instructor. And the next question would be our numeric response. So I'll change this up, click that start button, and ask you all to respond to the next question here. No worries, depending upon how you feel. Sometimes you just got to jump in and get your hands wet. So if you feel like you have no understanding just yet, that's totally fine. If you feel you are the master at this point in time, that's great too. But I'm going to put in another response as well. Maybe, oops, not 15, but maybe I am kind of half and half here. So anyone who is teaching a mathematics class, your students, again, can use those decimal points to put in for their responses. Oh, we have another one, a few other people giving us the halves. I love it. So you can go ahead and click on a response that might be the closest. So perhaps you decide, okay, this is the correct answer or the closest answer, but maybe you also wanted to give credit to everyone who was between a certain range, maybe 2.6 to 3.4. Well, instead of having to go through and find all of those responses that are in that range, next to the response option here, we do have a little arrow button down, and this will allow you to sort your responses. So in this case, we're sorting those responses, and it's highest to lowest. You can also change that from lowest to highest. You can do this also in the short answer questions, and it'll put the options in alphabetical order for you, A to Z, Z to A. You can also sort your responses here by the number of responses per answer. So I can sort these, and I see now we have bucketed a few of these responses together. And the last question we'll do here today is an anonymous question. So if you are asking some personal, very delicate style questions, or even at the end of the semester, if you wanted to survey your students and ask them how they felt about your class or moving things online, you can ask this question and your student's answer will not be tied back to their name. All you need to do this is click on the little menu option at the end of your toolbar and choose the anonymous option. This is also where you can choose to change the timer counting from up to down, or switch it back if you don't like it automatically stopping. So we'll turn anonymous mode on, and you'll notice the toolbar changes color here. This way the students get a visual that this is a completely new style of question. You can ask an anonymous question in any format that you wish. However, with those short answers, please remember that you cannot find out who responded. So should an improper word be entered, you would not be able to trace that back to the student, whereas with regular style short answer questions, you can find out each individual student's response. And that goes for every question style. But just to be cautious for those short answer questions in anonymous mode, if you don't know your class very well just yet. So we'll choose multiple choice here and start the clock. Now, in this case, we are asking this question anonymously for how much water you drink, but this could be anything, even alcohol, if that's something you're covering in your courses. And what the students see is the icon that shows them that this is an anonymous question, so that they, again, are aware of this. And iClicker really wanted to make sure that students have the privacy that they deserve. And we know, especially in the classroom setting, that we have some nosy neighbors looking over shoulders. So you'll notice when you click on your response, it will highlight briefly and then automatically disappear. This is also great because once you stop the clock and those responses are locked in, even the student cannot retrieve their own anonymous response. So should a roommate or a family member or maybe someone not, friends with them get a hold of their phone or get into their account somehow on their computer, any of these delicate questions that you've asked, their response will not be able to be viewed by anyone. So that, again, just privacy-wise for those students so that you know you can cover those very delicate topics in your class. And just Don't forget to come out of anonymous mode by clicking on that menu button again, choosing anonymous. It'll switch to the off position. Your toolbar will go back to the normal color, and you're all set. So the next thing we'll do is cover a few quizzing questions. Now, quizzing is a lot different than polling. With iClicker, polling has the students answer the exact same question all at the exact same time. However, with quizzing, the students can respond to multiple questions, in fact, up to 200 questions, but they do have to be multiple choice. And they can respond to these questions at their own pace. So if you have some questions that you would like to ask in a quizzing functionality, perhaps you may have, give them 10 minutes at the end of class to respond to these questions, then this would be a great way to do that. And again, that just allows the students to go through at their own pace. However, if you are going to ask quizzing questions in a way or in multiple questions that you cannot fit on your screen very well, you may want to provide those questions to your students through your learning management system via an email so that they have something to look at to see all of those questions. Because we will not be taking snapshots of your computer screen and those questions. Most instructors don't want their quiz questions out, so that's why we don't take those snapshots. So to start a quiz, just click on the quizzing icon. It'll ask you to enter the number of questions that are in your quiz and then set the point value per question. Simply click the Start button. Your toolbar will reappear, and just like in polling, you'll click that Start button to start the clock and the timer. And again here, you will not be able to see the question on your screen. And I know I'm covering it for everybody who is trying to answer a question here. So the student simply sees the question number and then the options for the multiple choice answers at the bottom. So again, they can go through and they can select their response, click on the next question number, enter their answer, move to the next question number, and enter their response. Then they will be asked to click on the review option. And this way, and I'll move my student view over so you can see the third question here. This way, you can review those responses and make any changes or adjustments that the student would like to. So perhaps I want to come in here and change my answer. Then I can go back and review. I think everything looks great. I click Submit. And we do ask the students to state that they have not cheated, they have not received any unauthorized aid when answering these questions. However, we cannot guarantee that, especially in this virtual situation. So although the iClicker quizzing could basically replace a Scantron, if you wanted to think of it that way, you may want to use this more for any open book quizzes or tests that way. Again, because unfortunately, we just cannot guarantee that they wouldn't be looking on another tablet or their computer to be finding any of those responses. Then once the students are finished, we just click on Submit Quiz, and it lets us know it has been captured. And then all of the instructor needs to do is stop that quiz when you're ready. Now, please note that it will ask you if you are sure that you want to end the quiz, because quizzes cannot be restarted. So even if you don't have students' responses all the way in, if you stop the quiz now, those responses will not be captured. So you do have the little fail-safe button to go back, but we'll end the quiz at this time. And then we'll just end our polling session by going back to that main classroom toolbar. Let me get to a screen that's a little less busy here. And moving to the very last icon, the X. And this will allow me to end the session. Here I have the option to simply end the class. I have a fail-safe, please don't end my session. And you can also end class with an exit poll. If you choose the exit poll option, iClicker will automatically push out a follow-up question to your students. You don't need to do anything. We'll send it out to them ourselves. So after the class is over, the students will notice that they have a little alert here, and they can click on this and give feedback. Now, in this case, the students can rate their level of understanding from 1 to 5, and they have up to 1,000 characters to give you any feedback that they'd like. So maybe even a thanks. It finally makes sense. That's always a great one to hear. And they can send you that feedback to review once class is over. Now you're back, after your class, later that evening, the next day, you want to review all of your students' information and how they did. You simply go to the iClicker website. And in the top right-hand corner, you'll click on the Sign In button here. You'll enter or choose Instructor and enter your email and password to log in. All of the courses that you created in the iClicker Cloud desktop software will automatically appear here. You can also create a new course from the iClicker Cloud website if you'd like. And if so, that course would then appear in the desktop software. So again, everything is stored in the cloud for you. So we'll review the iClicker Cloud Training webinar and see what we did today. Today I ran an attendance session. I have that set so that this will automatically happen. When I click that Start Class button, students click Join and they're marked as being in attendance. The poll, I can see a little overview for my quizzes. I can also see how things went and that I have not graded this yet. And I can also see that so far I have 6 responses for my exit poll. So let's look at our polling questions. If I click on that session name, I can see all of the snapshots of the questions that we asked today. If I graded a question during the live session, I'll receive this graded badge. If not, then you may want to go and review that question. Now, of course, you can ask opinion questions, so there may not be a badge there if it's just for an opinion, and certainly will not be one for our anonymous question. And also with our anonymous questions, these questions you cannot grade. So even if you click on it, no matter how many times you try, these questions are not able to be graded since they should just be used for opinion style or information gathering questions. But as you can see, you can come in after the session and you can go right ahead and make adjustments to any of your grading. We can put in our response here and we can star our answer if we wanted to give that feedback. We can also still use the little menu button to view a word cloud or mark all of those responses correct if you hadn't done so in the live session. And any adjustments you make here will automatically appear in the iClicker Reef Student app. Now, you may notice in your session history in your iClicker Reef app that you cannot see the grades for your quiz. And that is done by design. We want the instructor to decide when students have access to the results for the quiz. So that's something that you can do after the class is over. Very helpful if you have 2 or more sections of the exact same class. And this way you can make sure that those results are not going to be provided to your next section that has yet to take the quiz. So we can come in and tap on the question number, go ahead and grade, again, just by clicking right on the correct response. You can also add any feedback that you wish at the bottom. So you have 1,000 characters per question. Also, you can go right ahead, continue grading all of your questions here. And then you have the option right next to the date and time. The menu button here will allow you to view your quiz settings and to allow students to view those graded results and any feedback that you may have provided. So click on that little box and save. And now your students will be able to see those results. Your People tab is your roster. So when your students join, their information will automatically populate here for you. The grade book is going to have 2 views for you. So this first view is a nice, easy look, easy on your eyes, a nice overview. You can also choose to change this from points to percentages with the toggle switch. The detailed view here will give you 1 column for every time you hold a session. And it will also let you know whether it was a poll or a quiz. We have to number every single session. This way they are all individualized. But although they are just numbered starting at 1, you can go right ahead and rename these sessions. Simply click on that session number and rename it to the chapter you are covering, the topic you covered that day in class, and that way it will rename that session to be whatever you choose. It will also rename it in the student's app. So when they go to review, they will know that those questions were from chapter 15. This is also where you currently retrieve your exit poll responses. So these exit poll responses, you can see how many have come in. You can easily click the download button here. This will open up those exit poll responses for you in a nice Excel spreadsheet. We can see everyone's responses. Thank you, you're all so wonderful. And you'll also have your students' information. So if you needed to answer a question from a student, you'll have their email there available to go right ahead and send them a message or an answer to their question. Simply click that Save button. And again, that will rename the session for you. If you wanted to actually take these responses and these points and add them to your learning management system's gradebook. So right now, the easiest way is to actually export the session. You can choose 1 session or all of them, so you could do this once a week, whatever you'd like to do. But click on that session number or name. And also, before you export it, you can choose the format that matches your learning management option. And this is great because it makes it so much easier to upload. Each learning management system has its own way of doing things. They want first name first, last name first, student ID number first. So choose the one that matches your learning management system, and it'll export in that way and turn it into a CSV file that you can then easily upload directly into your gradebook. The other option here is your attendance table. And here we see whether the students are in class or whether they were absent. We can also make adjustments if necessary. So perhaps I wanted to excuse a student. Maybe they had a doctor's note. I can put that note in here. I can save this, and it'll make a little flag in the top right-hand corner. So I know that I can make a change here. You can also always click on this, look back, see the original date the student was absent, the date you made the change, and any of your notes. This entire attendance table is also exportable. You can export it with or without your notes as well. And last but not least, your settings. So if you need to make any changes to your name of the course, if you're using Reef University at the moment and you have to go in and change your institution, you can do that here. You can change the date here. Also, the Devices tab. The default is to allow mobile devices and iClicker remotes. There's no need to make a change. Obviously, the iClicker remotes will not work since we are doing some distance learning. However, it will not make any difference. But if you feel better, you can definitely change this over to mobile devices only. Also, we do have a new feature called Focus. This option you can turn on or off, and this will actually count how many times your student leaves the iClicker Reef app. It's a wonderful option to help students become more aware of their own behavior. This is also best used if your students are going to be answering their questions on one device and then watching your presentation on their tablet or on their computer or laptop. Because anytime the student goes away from the iClicker website or they move away from the iClicker Reef app on a smartphone or tablet, it will count as them being out of focus. So that's just something to keep in mind. And we have a great webinar on iClicker Focus and how that can be used and some of the research that we did behind that as well. Your Attendance tab, this is automatically on by default. However, if you don't want that Attendance tab to populate, simply click on the toggle switch to turn that off. You do not need to set an auto run option. This is mainly used for our instructors who strictly use iClicker to take attendance only. So they don't ask any polling questions, they just take attendance. So just keep that in mind because it would run every single day of your class. But again, no need to set that because when you start class, attendance will automatically be taken for you. We also do have a geolocation attendance feature, but we want to make sure you keep that option turned off at the moment because this will allow students to answer your questions from wherever they are. This would only be helpful if you were meeting in a face-to-face environment. So just make sure that you keep that geolocation setting turned off. And then under polling is where you will find the option to share the images of your screen. The default is to allow those images to be sent whenever you start that polling question. However, you can make changes to that if you wish. If you choose not to send a picture of your screen at all, please do note that any of the target questions will be sent to the student devices since they have to be able to touch or tap on that screen to show where the answer would be. So that is the only option there that would be sent to the students' devices if you chose this last option not to send the picture of the screen. And your scoring option here, iClicker has it defaulted so that students earn 1 participation point when they respond to at least 75% of the questions. So if you are going to be asking 4 questions, students who respond to 3 or 4 of those questions will receive 1 point. If a student responds to just 2 questions, they will not receive that participation point. Now, you can make this as strict or lenient as you wish. You can also choose to zero it out. You don't have to give participation points. So you run your classroom the way you want to. As for the performance points, the default is to give 1 point for a correct response. However, again, you can simply zero that out, and maybe you want to give a point for every question students respond to, whether they're right or wrong. just to encourage them to respond and participate since we are not able to be face-to-face with them. And that's fine too. I also have some instructors who like to give half a point just for responding and another half a point if you answer correctly. Therefore, each question would be worth a total of 1 point. So again, set your settings the way you like it for scoring. You are running your classroom, you know how you'd like to work things. So go right ahead and zero those all out. Do whatever you need. Just don't forget to hit the Save button in the top right-hand corner of the page to save any changes that you made in your settings. And I know that we are over time, and I apologize. There's just so much to cover, and I wanted to be sure that I gave you everything that I possibly could. But should you need any additional support, we have a great online knowledge base. Again, right here at iClicker.com, click on the support button in that white banner. And this will give you the option to search our knowledge base or to contact our customer support.
So thanks everyone for joining us. And I know some of you might have to jump off, but if anyone's able to stick around, we do have a few questions. I think you've answered pretty much most of them already, Elena, but we do have a couple more. So if anyone else has any other questions, again, you can hover over the bottom of your screen and the chat icon should appear. And make sure you're just sending your question to me, Lindsay Thomas. So first question we had was, how do I invite students to join my course?
That's a great question. You do not have to invite your students. What we ask you to do is make sure that you provide your students with the information that they will need to find your course. So again, once your students create their account, they will need to add the course by searching. So their dashboard may be empty. They just click on this Add button and choose their institution name. Again, that will automatically populate because that's a required field when they create their account. So they can simply tap right on that and then type in either the course name itself, or again, they can search by your name. So if I put my name in here, I would be able to see all of the courses that I'm teaching. The students can then go ahead and choose one of the courses. And again, if you put in the days and times, especially if you're teaching more than one section of the exact same course, this can really be helpful to make sure that the students join the correct section. Then they confirm that this is the correct course. They can go back if it's not. And then once it is, they just add that course. And should a student add their a course and find out, oh, I added myself to the wrong section, they can go right ahead and delete themselves from that course. And you as the instructor also have the power to do that. And should you go ahead and remove a student from your course, you would do that from the People tab. And again, this is your roster. You can use the little check mark box next to the student's name and choose Remove above that table. That student will then be shown in their status as removed. If you see a student has dropped, then that means they have deleted themselves from that course. But if you actually remove a student, it will block them from joining again. So should a student come back and say, oh no, I'm in that drop add period, I have to take the class now, you can actually reactivate the student from this drop down and choose to view just those removed students, choose their name again, and then activate. And that will then bring back the student and any of their attendance information and, of course, any points and things that they may have been awarded from participating in sessions.
Perfect. All right, so I think we have maybe one more question. So as a math teacher, can we import questions, images, or diagrams from other websites?
That's a great question. You can actually use anything that you wish. Again, nothing is actually uploaded or input into the iClicker software. What you would simply do is add that image to your presentation if you wanted to. So you can copy and paste it right out of an ebook or from a website. You can even bring up another website. So if I wanted to, I can open up a new window here. I can even go to like Google Maps and bring up an image and use that as a question. Because remember, we are just taking a snapshot of your computer screen. So if I were to ask this as a target question and have the students tell me where the Renaissance began, they would get a snapshot of this entire screen and then just touch on wherever they think the Renaissance would be, and I could answer that. Also for a math instructor, especially if you like to do any kind of drawing, you can bring up another program and do your drawing just like you normally would on a whiteboard. I tend to use OneNote for drawing instead of something like Paint. Paint, there's just so many different things, so it confuses me. That's not my thing, but if you're proficient in Paint, then that's great. I just find this is super easy. There's a draw button. I have an eraser if I need it. You can add and get fancy, all of these different shapes, but you can just simply click on a color. I can then draw a triangle here and then use this image as a question and ask my students to pretend that this triangle has 2 equal sides and 2 equal angles, and what would this triangle be? And the students would see everything that's on my screen. So they will see OneNote on top of my blue background of my PowerPoint presentation. They'll see my toolbar. They'll see the Zoom toolbar. Everything, that's the snapshot. So what you're seeing on the computer screen right now is exactly what will be sent to their device. So they could answer this as a short answer question and type in that this is an isosceles triangle.
Great, thank you.
I hope that helped. No problem.
Okay, I think maybe we'll do one more question. I know a few of you are still sticking around, and some more questions have been coming in. So a couple people have asked about sort of the roles in setting up your account. So if you've set up your account as a student, do you have to go back and change it to an instructor account? Will students see that when they log in? And do you need a free access code as the instructor?
Great question. Okay, so if you created your account with me today as a student in iClicker Reef, you do not need to make any changes. Typically, we suggest creating your instructor account first. However, especially for these webinars, or sometimes we do an in-person, presentation, we have instructors create a student account first. So you're totally fine. Just use that exact same email and password that you used to create the student account to log in as an instructor. And once you are in your instructor account, you can go, I'll show you again what the first page looks like. When you first log in, you can go over here in the top right to your name. And again, if you're using Reef University as your institution, just so you could get started, and once we get your school's name into our database, you can then make the change of your primary institution and change that to your correct institution. This way it'll auto-populate anytime you create a new course to be that correct institution. You can edit this by at the bottom of this little pull-out sidebar. That will allow you to make any edits here. Obviously, as a student, it doesn't ask you to add your primary discipline, but if should you wish to do that, you can do that now. So again, the same email and password as your student account. You do not need an access code as an instructor. What we can do is actually add some time on the back end for you so that you can practice with the software. All students who create an iClicker Reef account for the very first time will automatically receive a free 14-day trial. So all students, as long as they've never created an account before, again, will receive that 14-day trial. So make sure they put that access code in before that trial period runs out, so there's no disruption to their account there. But if you simply let us know what your email address is, we can go right ahead and add time for you as the instructor so that you can continue to practice back and forth as the student and instructor at the same time. And you wouldn't need an access code that way.
Great. So I haven't had any more questions come in. So I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today once again. We will be following up with a recording of this webinar by email, and we'll be posting it at the iClicker.com homepage at that COVID-19 response page that you can access by clicking on the banner. So if you think of any additional questions later on, do please feel free to respond directly to our follow-up email, and we'll get you the answers that you need. And if you need any extra help getting started with iClicker, please do feel free to visit us at iClicker.com, click on the support link at the top, and please stay safe and healthy, everyone. Thanks again for joining us.
Yes, very much so. Thank you all. I was just going to bring that up. But yes, you can sign up for an additional training if you need to meet with us again. We are here to help and support you through this. But once you get in there and get your hands wet, you know, your feet wet, your hands dirty, you will be good. I know you will. It's just a little adjustments, but just start and stop and that little toolbar and you'll be good. I know it. So I wish you and your families, friends, or students a very successful remainder of the semester. And also, please stay healthy.